Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening. Hi, Andrea. Hi, Shannon.
What's up, guys? How is everybody?
It's a great winter day, huh? Love the
Oh,
snow.
geez, way up in the mountains, it looks like. Aren't you cold up there?
Right, with no coat.
I think Nancy might be joining us from Mexico. Cheryl said she would be joining if she can later. Robin and Judy are the only ones we're waiting for. Sorry about all the confusion, guys. That was kind of a mess. Looks like TJ's happy.
It's been a long day. I really need this pizza.
No problem, man. Do you guys, it's 6:03, you want to just get started and we'll announce when people join in?
Sure.
Cool. Well, 6:03, we'll call to order announcement of member openings. I don't think we have any. Is that correct?
That's correct.
No, no openings. So we need to approve the minutes. And we have three things two to approve. The third one is not ready yet. Does anybody have questions or comments about the minutes?
Yeah, I had something. Just a second.
Robin has joined for the record.
I have a question, since it was brought up in the minutes. I'm just wondering if we ever took care of the issue that Dylan was working on of getting all the zoning corrected. My guess is that's fell through the cracks.
I think that has fallen through the cracks, but was it written wrong in the minutes?
No, I don't think it was written wrong in the minutes. So what? Shut up and raise it somewhere else?
Well, I would never say something like that. But it might be appropriate to put it on an agenda and talk about it in depth. In the proper format.
Okay.
Is that cool? Is that a good way to put that?
I move that we do so.
Okay. So I'll get that on the next agenda, and I think that would probably be a land acquisition thing. You're talking about where the zoning doesn't have it specified as open space, right?
Right.
Okay. On it. How about a motion to approve? If everybody's cool, we could do them in one motion. Anybody?
Just looking at my notes. Yeah, I move that we accept the motion, the minutes as written.
Can I get a second?
This is the October.
Sorry, the September and the October subcommittee meeting, those two. Is that what we're doing?
If everybody's cool with that.
Well, hold on just a second. I take notes for a reason. Just don't read.
While we're thinking, I wanted to put it out there that Robin and Jeff, we can make them voting members for tonight, just for the heck of it, since we have so few regular meetings. For the record, John, they're both alternates. That's why I did that. What do you got, Jen?
Well, just on page 5 of the packet, it has some kind of scrazzled wording about the Iron Mountain Trail connection we hiked last week. Let's see, Vice Chair Beeson, It Oak map. It Oak Ridge, the undeveloped road in the woods by Crystal Park over by Oklahoma, pull up on a map. I don't know what any of that means. So I suggest saying something like, per Chair Beeson, the proposed trail would begin from the old Inman Trail that runs behind the high school, south up the side of Little Sheep Mountain to the saddle between Little Sheep Mountain and Iron Mountain.
I am happy with that. You want to make a motion with that amendment?
Yes, I would. I amend it. I move that we amend the minutes to replace the language right after Iron Mountain Trail connection we hiked last week. and replace the following sentence with the sentence that I just read. And I can send that over to whoever wants it. Or should I read it out like right now?
I think if you read it out, whoever does the minutes will see it and
Okay,
amend it.
okay. We'll replace the sentence following Iron Mountain Trail connection. We hiked it last week with the following. We hiked it last week. We'll replace the following sentence with the following verbiage. Per Vice Chairman Beeson, the proposed trail would begin from the old Inman Trail that runs behind the high school, south up the side of Little Sheep Mountain to the saddle between Little Sheep Mountain and Iron Mountain. Okay.
Anybody want a second? Andrea seconds the motion. All those in favor of passing these 2 minutes, raise your hand, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Or you don't have to say aye. I'm sorry. I always mess that up. It's just more fun, right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to letter C, agenda review and public comment on non-agenda items. I need to take off item number G, executive session. That can go away. So that's gone. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about that's on the agenda? Nope. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on anything that's not on the agenda? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Can anybody see any hands waving around?
There's nobody in the attendee section.
Oh, perfect. So we can move on to Parks and Rec Advisory Board update. Everybody get a chance to look at those minutes. And does anybody have any comments or concerns about Parab? We have a bunch of Parab people here we can talk to if we need. Anybody? Nope. And new business, that's quick. Whoever's doing the hosting, I think Judy, keep an eye out for her. She's looking to get in on the meeting. I resent her the link, so just keep your eyes open for her. We would like to introduce our new Parks and Rec director, John Stark.
Really quick, just it looks like Judy's in the attendees thing. I don't know how to
So
move
she
her.
needs to move to a panelist. Thanks, Andrea. So we were going to have this in person, John, and we had a big cake for you and like food and drink. Not going to happen. Now we're in Zoom meeting. So this is John. So
Well,
take the floor.
I'm really excited to join you all. This is just a great opportunity for me professionally, and you know, the chance to, you know, remain here in my community and continue to work in parks and open space and work with some familiar faces and, you know, meet with some new folks. I'm really excited to have this opportunity. So I'm hoping to learn a lot from you all and just really excited to be here and to help support.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? No?
Is the cake over at your house? Because I can be there in 5 minutes if it is.
Oh man, dude, don't call my bluff.
No, just that it's wonderful to have you, John. I've heard wonderful things about you. Manitou's lucky to have you on board, and I look forward to talking to you more tomorrow night.
Hey, thanks. That's so kind. I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah, we got really lucky. I've met John in person, and then we did a little hike today. I think we're in good hands. We're gonna have some growing pains getting him used to our chaos. So I think if we all just kind of remember, it's gonna be a little trying for a little bit because he's got a lot on his plate, and all of us coming at him. So
Yeah, hang in there with me, and you know, I'm just, you know, excited to be here with you all. So feel free to reach out to me anytime, and you know, catch me up on what I don't already know.
sound good, guys?
Great.
Anything? Anybody? Is Dole around? Do we see him yet?
Yeah.
Dole is on.
All right, so F, old business, number 1 is a Creek Walk presentation and Q&A with Dole. We're getting ready to they're gonna ask us for some money, and I thought it might behoove us to hear straight there's been a bunch of confusion of what's going on with Creek Walk. And Dole is here to set us straight and tell us exactly what's going on with no room for me miscommunicating anything or anybody else. So Dole, take the floor. Yeah, not really.
He's having his AI robot take the floor.
It sounded like it. We'll give him a couple minutes to figure it out.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Can anyone hear me?
We can now.
Can you hear me?
No.
You're breaking up now.
I'm trying to get it.
Almost there.
It's gonna be a long night.
That sounded like Peter Frampton.
Testing. Hello. Hello.
Almost there.
Hello.
Hey, Dole.
Hello. There. Can you guys hear me? I'm so sorry.
Yep.
Is this working?
Yep.
Yep. Now
Okay.
turn the video on.
Well, I have the video off to save bandwidth,
Okay.
so you can hear me. All right, I will start talking. And if I hear someone say, hey, we lost you, then I'll just know that I'm lost. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, Shannon, thanks for the introduction. Dolger Benick, city engineer for Manitou Springs, project manager for the Creek Walk Trail as a whole. I'll start off with kind of giving an update on phase 3, which is the phase from Mayfair over to basically Old Man's Trail area, well, to the Chamber area. And that was the project that we took the contract to council the end of December, and council asked us to evaluate permeable pavements to see what it would look like in costs and maintenance. And so we are scheduled to present those and answer those questions February 21st. And my plan is I basically have 3 options that I'm going to present to council and then try to get their concurrence potentially on one of them. That project is fully funded right now. And so if council chooses to keep the contract as it is with the concrete multi-use trail, then we can get the contract approved and we could probably begin construction 3 or 4 weeks after that council meeting. If the direction from council is to change the pavement type to either like a permeable pavement section, then we will need to re-advertise the project to include the permeable pavements. I did get that confirmation from CDOT. So we won't really know the future of that project until after that February 21st council meeting. Okay, does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. There was some other confusion. So I serve on PPACG, which is the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, and that is the agency that is the steward for all the federal dollars. So all the federal projects that Manitou applies for, the money gets distributed through PPACG. They recently, is everyone okay? They recently did a call for projects, and there was extra money in the pool. And so let me back up. I forgot an important step. We first advertised Creek Walk Trail Phase 3 back in like September. And that included removing the wooden pedestrian bridge from behind the chamber and building a new pedestrian bridge, kind of more of a skew to the creek to get people over the creek and to ensure the bridge was ADA compliant. We advertised the project. We did not have near enough money, so we cut back the scope to not do any of the bridge work and only the trail work. We re-advertised it, and we did have enough money to do the project. So fast forward to the topic I was just referencing, when PPACG did the call for projects, I put a request in for $400,000 of new money to go to Creek Walk Trail, and that was approved, with the idea that that additional money could be used on building the bridge if, that was the direction we want to go. Now, in that, it's a 20% match. So for the federal $400,000, we need to come up with $100,000 of local money. And Shannon, that's where my email to you went in of, hey, can we count on using OSAC's $100,000 as the local match to the $400,000 federal grant, with the goal that that money then gets applied towards doing potentially new bridge work, or if we decide not to do the bridge, it will go towards additional sections of Creek Walk Trail.
Gotcha. Tim, do you have a question?
Yeah, 20% of 400,000 is 80,000.
What
Not
you do, you
Not
ask,
100,000.
well, you ask for 500,000, you present it as 20% us, 80%,
Oh,
and it adds
okay.
up 500,000. Otherwise, you are
Gotcha.
right. I think I said it awkwardly.
Okay.
And Dole, when we spoke the other day, that money, you're probably not finished, are you?
No, go ahead. I think that was it in a nutshell.
So that month, did I understand the other day when I was in your office, we talked to how that money wasn't necessary for that anymore, but we could use that 100 grand. You still need the money, but it might be going to different things. Did I misunderstand that, or?
Well, a couple things. So if we award the project with concrete pavement
As it is,
then we have enough money to do the project. And so Manitou has a rule that you have to have a 20% contingency on construction projects. And I don't quite have enough for 20% contingency. So I might potentially need some. Now you asked me what some is, and I of course don't know, but we've got about a $25,000 cushion in the project right now. And a trail project is a low risk project, which means, we're not gonna, as soon as I say this, I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot. We don't anticipate running into utility conflicts because we're not really excavating or digging. It's a low risk project. We're not doing water or sewer. So we anticipate a low risk. So we probably would need a full 20% contingency, but that is what the code says. However, this gets a little bit trickier if we decide to change the pavement sections. That we're developing or
you're breaking up.
Neutral.
No,
Dole,
we're losing you.
We're losing you.
Oh man, how's that?
Better.
Jeez. One of the pavement sections that we're proposing, one of the three, of course, one is existing concrete. One of the permeable pavement sections is cost neutral, but it has other downsides. And then the second pavement section that could be selected is about double the cost. So if that were selected by council, we would need to come up with additional money. And then we may need to ask OSAC for that money to help cover the additional pavement cost. So the point is, I don't yet know exactly how it would be used, but it's definitely important to the project, however it's used.
Gotcha. That makes total sense to me. And what do you guys remember? I do not have it in front of me and I forgot to pull it up. Aren't we budgeting like, don't we have like 150 G's in our budget kind of set aside for that? Is that true?
I thought it was 100.
100 even?
I thought it was 100 also.
Okay.
But you could, if you wanted to, if OSAC wants to, you could approve an amount not to exceed a certain amount. Like you could say no greater than X dollars. So if it's less than, that's great, but not to exceed that if it goes over that.
I mean, I think we've discussed this a lot and we've always said we're going to be team players. I don't want to hem anybody up over dollars and cents. So we've got the money and I would guess that it's probably one of the top priorities for the citizens of Manitou. And we've always talked about it. I don't know, anybody, what is everybody, Andrea?
I just have a couple of questions.
Of course.
So, one is, so there used to be a creek walk, somebody in planning that had a role with creek walk and she is gone now.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if so it's you, Dole, that's working on creek walk, and then are there other points of contact at the city working on it, or where are we?
Not really. It's really just me.
Okay.
Which is pretty bad.
So my hope is that we can maybe talk, I don't know who to, maybe Hannah, talk about maybe some connectivity there with planning. I don't know, but some way to like what would be helpful support, at this point, like that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I think overall, like I'm in favor of, certainly having funding available for that, but like I'm just wondering what other resources might be needed to kind of work on the project from here, at this point and in the future.
Well, I think I can answer that. So, I mean, we have a set of plans that are ready to go for phase 3. It's just a matter of getting the pavement types figured out, what's best, making some decisions, and then we can get that project started. No problem.
How about a committee, Dole? Haven't we had a committee for Creek Walk for like 30 years and then
Yes.
now you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants and then all at the very last minute you hear from citizens that they wanted something that you didn't know about?
Well, since we had an approved plan, we just went with design and we tried to do it according to the Creek Walk master plan. We do have a Creek Walk Trail group that helped us meet on phases 4 and 5.
Is it true they haven't met since like before COVID though?
Well, we met and walked phase 4 and 5, got some direction. That project was kind of put on hold because we were waiting on the purchase of the Chase Bank because of how the Creek Walk Trail interacts with the Chase Bank and the Hiawatha site there at Old Man's Trail.
As you know, as a citizen, I would really like to see some kind of advisory committee. And I am not by any means saying you're not good at your job or you're doing, but I don't want to see our staff get hung out at the very end because they didn't have a lot of guidance from a committee. And I think a lot of these questions could have maybe been, I know this is like a 10-year-old plan, and I think a committee might have helped. But that's just as a citizen. We're open space. We can't really tell you or anybody what to do. So, but if we're
Well,
spending our money, I would like to see some kind of committee help steer this in the future going forward. Is that something that could work? That must have not been a good idea.
Shannon, can you hear me, Shannon?
So I've
I
been
can't
trying
get
to,
it all.
I have a question. Can I ask a question? Because this is
Of course.
not him, not Dole, but this is January. This is the beginning of the year, so to speak, financially, right? So when you say we're going to take this $100,000 we held back and use it, I don't know that this is a bad plan. I'm just saying, are we then, if something comes up like it did on Serpentine Drive, are we just, whoops, we can't do anything more? I'm just, I don't understand when you say, well, you haven't, that was it. So, okay, if we do this, then for the rest of the fiscal year, we're just SOL if something comes up.
I mean, yeah, technically, if something big came up and we needed that money, but we don't have to set a budget with, let me see if I say this right, and I'm probably not going to say it right. We don't have to set a budget with specific line item. We can move things around. When we go to council with our budget, we say, hey, this is kind of what we were thinking.
Right.
But we do not have to, we don't have a checkbook for every line item.
But
We've always,
my question, I understand that part. My question is, going forward for the rest of the fiscal year, if something, a piece of property, a couple pieces of property, since we're going to be looking at those anyway, comes up, are we going to have in some other pocket more cash to work with? That's what I'm.
we have a land acquisition pocket. We have a maintenance, a trail maintenance. We have city staff. We have a creek walk item in there, and that's where this money would come from, but it's all one pot. But yeah, we have money set aside for land acquisition. If we had to move things around, say our budget's 500 grand, 450 or whatever it is, and we spent this and a piece of property came up, we could foreseeably be out of money, but those are, the risks you take with your budget. And I
there
think
is other money set aside in case something comes up like a.
Oh yeah, this is not even, but we have talked about this since I've been on OSAC. So, well, I think since Creek Walk has been in the works, everybody has always made this a priority. It's a big deal. And we've always set aside money for grant match or whatever it needed to be. So.
And has anybody, this I guess goes to Dole, has anybody other than Dole and the city laid eyes on the new design for the bridge?
We had a presentation. When was that present? Me and Andrea were trying to figure this out. We're trying to do it by who was the planning director at the time. And that changes like monthly. So I believe it was Christine Lowenberg and Karen Berthold that presented it to us. And it was an information only. Here, you guys, look at this. It was a glossy, like nice print, but I don't know when that was. I believe it was before your time.
Okay, so does anybody remember what that looked like? Was it a good design?
it follows like the Creek Walk plan, which is like a published document.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shannon?
Yeah.
And I may have been a little confusing. If council decides to keep the Creek Walk Trail with concrete, I don't think I'm going to need any additional funds to build phase 3.
But if there is a contingent, you might need to pull from us. And I'm totally cool with that. I'm not looking for a dollar and cent from you tonight. Other people might be, but we budgeted. I am 100% cool with giving you what you need. We just had a lot of confusion and I didn't know how to put all this into words, and we just needed some, hey, how's it going? We haven't seen you in a while either. So might as well check in, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And I think, so I lost coverage there for a little bit, but I wanted to go back, if I may, to your comment about having kind of a committee help lead some of that direction.
Right.
So I don't know if you heard, but we did meet on Creek Walk Trail phases 4 and 5. Nancy Wilson was there. We had several people from the community. We walked the proposed site. We looked at amenities, you know, and the biggest, and so just to clarify, phase 4 and 5 is the section from the chamber to Old Man's Trail, basically. And that's the section where there's kind of the sidewalk section and then the soft surface section. And the only real conclusion from that is that, you know, we intend to leave the soft surface a soft surface and then try to make as many improvements up on the sidewalk as we can to make that the full multi-use width.
And that's fully funded, right?
That is fully funded, correct.
But
And
I have a question on this. This 100,000 is really for the bridge, that if we do get a match to replace this bridge, and then I don't know how many sections of the creek walk there are, because it doesn't end at section 5 at Old Man's Trail. It keeps going. So I don't know how many sections there are, but I'm sure that something will come up to say, oh, we ran into something again that needs more money.
yes.
And then the question is, does this bridge really need to be replaced? I mean, we're replacing it to be ADA compliant, which would be nice, but that's for $500,000. I don't know. I think there's questions there.
Well, especially when that bridge is what, 10 feet from a road.
That's what I was gonna ask Shannon, is like, that's the ridge behind the building with a question mark, right? I mean, I ride that to work and like, I just take the road.
Right.
So it seems like there would be like a lot better things to spend that kind of money on. But
Well, and you know, and this goes to that committee thing, because and this is my personal opinion. I don't know that I want to get as an open space committee into the minutia of this project. I think a citizens committee would be better served doing that instead of us nitpicking a bridge or no bridge. I think a very diverse citizens group should be the ones picking out the bridge.
Well, and does it go to city council? And I'm sure that they're more into this creek walk and because I know there's a master plan and I need to look at it, and I've looked at parts of it, but I'm assuming city council really has more of a grasp of it. And if city council came to us and said, yeah, you know what, this bridge really is used, it's going to really cost that much, and can you guys really put in that money for that? We're requesting that, and then we would say, yeah, but we're having questions, and do we really need a $500,000 footbridge?
And I can answer that because I think you all make great points. And I think council probably agrees with you. And I have to say that when the project was given to me, that was the design. And I didn't know that there was concern about the bridge. I do think the bridge is optional, which is why we cut it out, and which is why we're just going to focus on the trail section at this point. And I don't know who made the comment, I apologize, but if it's decided that there's no bridge, then yes, that money can get applied to additional future sections of the trail. We just have to amend it in the federal system, but that's not a big deal.
And honestly, it might be something where we're putting 100 G's into this until it's done. I mean, it might, there might be an ask from us. Who knows how the economy goes? And I think since I've been on, we've always been cool with it. No, they haven't taken any money from us yet. So I think that makes it a little bit different. It's real easy to say, yeah, we'll give it to you, and they don't take it. Then we're like, yeah, we'll give it to you again.
I could certainly address, sorry, let me turn my phone off. There were three issues that came up at council with regards to Creek Walk Phase 3. One was the type of surface. Second was the bridge, and third was the 12 units of trees that were slated to be removed. So those were the three things that council asked Joel to go and look at, and extended the project no greater than 60 days. The bridge was one of the three things. So partly because that's a very iconic historic area behind the chamber with that beautiful bridge and that old bridge that's currently there. I'm sure at some point there's going to have to be another bridge, but at this point it's not critical to the project. So we were trying to look at it from that standpoint. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know, though, those were the three issues that we had addressed in that council meeting.
So Dole, you basically just, I mean, you need basically a motion for us that says, hey man, we're cool with giving you this money.
I think what I would like.
Sorry to be so casual, but.
No. I think what would be helpful is that first, if we're able to keep the project as is with the concrete pavement section, then if I could just have, even if, and I think someone suggested a moment ago, a not to exceed amount for a construction contingency, that would be one element. And then if I end up not, and okay, if a more expensive pavement section is selected, the city doesn't yet know where that money will come from. And I don't know if the OSAC funds could help fund that. So that's the second scenario. And then the third scenario is if everything in the first two go fine, or we don't need the second scenario, we just do the first scenario, then that money could be put towards the match for the additional 400,000. So it's like there's a couple of like if then statements in there.
Could we simplify this and make a motion? I'm not making a motion. Could we simplify it and make a motion that says we have $100,000 to use for Creek Walk as needed?
I mean, that would certainly be the easiest for me, and I can definitely email you, Shannon, what I'm needing in the moment you needed to distribute that to the committee or something, just so everyone knows how it's going to get used. I'd be happy to do that.
You know, I really don't, and I want to hear everybody's thoughts, but I don't want to get into micromanaging this and, hey, I'm not cool with you having the money for this, but I am for that. I think we should give him a blank check at kind of, that's my thought. Anybody, what does everybody else think?
I mean, sorry, I was butting in
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick, but yeah, I mean, looking at the post plan, got it here, and Creek Walk is one of the major things that we're supposed to be supporting in the post plan through OSAC. So, I mean, I'm all for doing that. I agree with you. The micromanagement is something that we shouldn't be doing, and quite honestly, if we have a chance to be, investing in infrastructure in Manitou Springs, I mean, that's probably not dollars wasted here. So, I mean, I'm siding with Shannon on this one, where we have money that's been earmarked for Creek Walk for years. I remember Nancy Fortune took me down there back when I started way long ago, walking with a big group of people, showing the vision of how that's supposed to be. So I think that this is the kind of support that we need to be giving them.
So we'll just, I'll make what's that called? A
Motion?
A motion to give 100,000, not to exceed 100,000 to Creek Walk for whatever additional expenses may come along that council decides they need.
That sounds great, Robin. Could I propose some additions to that motion, and you guys can take it or leave it? I would like to propose some kind of wording that says we generally support Creek Walk I just want that out there that OSAC supports Creek Walk generally, in its entirety forever. I don't know how we word that. I would also like to make a recommendation in that motion to city council, whoever the powers that be, that they enact a citizens committee for Creek Walk, not the, but a, whether it be a new one or something. I think this is important. I think this is the crown jewel of Manitou. And I think it would behoove us to have citizens involved. I don't believe in citizens committees for every little thing in Manitou, but I think this one's a big one. What do you guys think about that? Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay, so I'm typing up a thing.
I'm all over the place. Sorry.
No, it's good. We're collectively coming to it. But let's see. Robin, if you want to I'm going to put some things together. So the first one is a recommendation to allow city, I don't know how to say it, like recommend that $100,000 of OSAC funds is used for the Creek Walk project.
Not to exceed 100,000, and if they need more than that, then we'll have to vote again.
Okay. Recommend.
Can I just recommend it? I would make those two separate votes, one for the money and two for the committee.
Yes.
Just so they're not, so they're separate and,
That's fair.
Okay, so
Shannon?
two different.
Buenas noches.
Maybe
Buenas noches.
Shannon's statement should go first on the first one. That
No,
OSAC.
we'll do in two motions. I'd be
but
happy to make the second.
money, we could just put in what you said, which is OSAC support
I have a question.
project.
Go ahead, Nancy. Nancy Wilson has joined us for the record.
Can this? Yeah, sorry for being late. Is this not to exceed 100,000 for phase 3?
Yes, it's for whatever phase goes from the chamber or from the pool to the chamber. If they don't use the funds for that, we'll move it to something else they might need in the future.
They'll move it to something else if
Right.
we've given them a blank check like this. They won't have to ask us. at all.
Right. Did you hear that, Nancy?
I can't hear you.
Are you there?
Now, is this for phase 3 to the chamber? That is the motion for phase for the 100.
Hey, Nancy, can you hear me?
I would specifically have a friendly amendment that you make this money available only for Creek Walk Phase 3 at this point. And if it's not used, then we can talk about it down the road. But I do agree with Tim that if you offer no greater than $100,000, we'll find a way to spend it.
I like it. Robin, are you cool with that to your motion?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So I have recommend spending $100,000 of OSAC funds for use with phase 3 of the Creek Walk project. You guys want to add to that?
That sounds good.
Can we?
Andrea, I would say no greater than,
Instead of
because
spend?
Spending
if
no
it comes
greater
in at
than.
less than, then
Allocate $100,000 for,
Hey, Nan, I'm gonna
Not to
WhatsApp Nancy.
okay,
Okay.
not to,
Okay, so recommend spending no greater than $100,000 of OSAC funds for use with phase 3 of the Creek Walk project.
That's good.
Sound all right?
Sounds great.
Okay, and then a second one, I wrote restate continued support of the OSAC for the Creek Walk project, whereas it is a primary goal outlined in the postmaster plan. And then a third one, recommend consideration of establishing a new Creek Walk committee to help support the process.
That is perfect.
Should it say new citizens committee?
A new citizen-based, because it can include other,
Totally.
council people, but yeah, or whoever.
And it could be some staff members too. They'll have to figure that out. But that's just a recommendation. That nobody has to do it. I just want it as a citizen, and as someone who's helping fund it. I think it's important that's part of it. So
Okay, I'm going to reread it and then do you want to vote on each of them separately? What do you want to do?
Vote on each.
Vote on each.
okay.
Okay.
So Andrea, are you making the motion? And then we'll get a second on each one and a vote.
Robin, do you want to still make the motion on recommend spending no greater than 100,000 of OSAC funds for use with phase 3 of the Creek Walk project?
Yes, I will propose that.
Okay.
So moved. We need a second.
Second,
Someone seconded. That was TJ?
Tim.
I think that was
Tim.
Tim.
Tim seconded. All those in favor, raise their hand. That motion passes unanimously. Number 2.
Okay, number 2, I will make a motion to restate continued support of the OSAC for the Creek Walk project, whereas it is a primary goal outlined in the post-master plan.
I second.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say, or put your hand up. Is there anybody against that? Looks like everybody's in favor of that. I like it.
Okay, and the last one, if someone else wants to make the motion, recommend consideration of establishing a new citizen-based Creek Walk committee to help support the process.
I'll make the motion.
So moved.
Does you, Shannon, or?
Yep.
Okay, and then second,
Second, anybody?
I can second.
All righty. Got a motion and a second. Everybody in favor, raise their hand. Anybody not in favor, speak up now, forever hold your peace. Sorry, we got 3 motions. We're all good. Hey,
Nice
Joel,
job, Andrea.
Dole, does that help you?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I think that was a yes, or it was, do you feel like I feel?
Sounded like a yes for me.
yeah. All right, I will email that to you, Shannon, or somebody to send on to them. if
I
they-
think at this point it can go to the new park. Oh, no, to me, and then I'll write a letter to council, right?
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, thank you. That helped.
Awesome, Dole. Let us know if you ever need anything or if anything ever changes.
Okay, and then, February 21st will be the next meeting for us for me to put the payment options to council, so I'll know
Do you
more
need
after that.
anybody, do you need us to be at the meeting?
I think that would be your guys' decision. If you wanted to, that could be your decision. But I plan to present.
Okay,
I just
Well,
think
thank you for your time.
I think if anybody can come, if anybody from OSAC can come, it would be really great. That would be, and I know a lot of people can't come, but even if you have a couple of representatives from the group, I think that would be really awesome.
okay. Thank you for your time, Dole.
Yeah, sorry my connection was bad, but thank you.
We got it done. It's all good. All right, you guys ready to move on to the next thing? It's old business number 2. The Trails Subcommittee report and discussion. So as you guys all know, we're doing something different. This is the first time we've done it, so it might be a little wandering. Just bear in mind, don't get crabby. We're figuring it out as we go. So Andrea, Seth, this is you guys' baby.
Go first, real quick. I'm just going to go through the update that is in the packet if you guys just want to look at it. And then Seth, then you can talk about Renfee stuff and whatever other updates. Yeah. All right. Okay, really quick before I get started, I just wanted to say, and I should have said this earlier, just about the budget. We haven't seen like an update on the, the financials in the last couple months, which maybe isn't that big a deal, but maybe doing something like that once every couple months would be great. Shannon, I don't know who would be in charge of that.
That will be city staff. We can work together and give us an update of what we spent and what we haven't spent. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be every month if for me, but
Well, we're going to be doing it every 3 months in our regular meeting. I can just put that on the agenda and say, hey guys, this is where we're at. Because we should be having our regular meetings once every 3 months. I think that should cover. How do you like that?
it's good for me.
Cool. Good idea.
All right. So we met in October, and there's a couple of updates in here that have happened since that meeting, but it includes kind of some of the main things that we talked about, and some projects for this year. So just kind of looking at projects happening this past year, the Rimfee Red Mountain Switchback project got finished, and Mile High Youth Corps was scheduled for the first 2 weeks of November, and I'm not sure what they ended up doing, but that happened. And then our 2023 GoCo grant that Skylar wrote was not funded, and that was for work on the Wildcat Gulch stairs. So that might be something to consider, maybe hiring the youth corps to work on, which we can talk about ideas for that in a second. These are just kind of ongoing things, just looking at like an informal trail management plan to share with the community, and then also looking at a process to develop for individuals to nominate open space and trails, whether it's just like an email to somebody or whatever. So trails maintenance projects, all of the current projects are listed on our shared Google document. I did go to look at it today, and that whole folder is now deleted. So I don't know if somebody might have accidentally done that. And so if you happen to have looked at it recently, look in your trash for Google Docs, and just you can restore the file there. But otherwise, I can put some back there. And we talked about doing trailhead cleanup and beautification. And you know what? I'm sorry. I'm just kind of looking through this document. If you guys have questions, just give a shout. So yeah, looking at doing some trailhead cleanup and beautification, and there's some other random little things that are outlined as some projects, but that can maybe be done like in-house with staff. But then other things we're probably talking about are the Rimfee projects that we might want to fund this year, and then Mile High Youth Corps projects we want to maybe fund. So we're talking about some of those things. And then I just outlined some trail projects that we sort of talked about in our group planning session and had kind of identified, and I just did a little bit of digging. But so Black Canyon probably needs a restart, to start looking at a master plan and restart looking at it. You guys probably all know that Dylan is no longer with the city of Manitou Springs. So just kind of looking at where we are at this point on that and who might be working with that. And John, I don't know if that's you, but I'm hoping somebody might be out there doing work with that or be willing to help.
That document gets a 404.
Gets a what? Okay, so
I didn't get that either.
okay, so anyways, so I will reach out on that to anybody, and if anybody has thoughts on these projects or wants to be a champion on it, that would be great too. But these are just some things. So there's the Eagle Mountain project, which would require those renewing of some easements, which I saw you guys have later in the agenda. But starting to have some conversations with people a little bit more and kind of get together and put our heads together to figure out, what we want, and then what needs to happen kind of thing. we had talked about this thing called the Ute Gateway Trail Connection. I think that's what is referenced in the post plan, or how it's referenced in the post plan. But this little picture, I put a little picture in here that just shows what they label as the Ute Indian Access Trail. And that's, I mean, it's on some private property, but it's in that picture there. You can kind of see how it runs up above Ruxton. And so we think it's on some Jenkins property. And I just looked at the property spot, or, you know, just seeing who owned them, but trying to get some conversations around that. And we had thought maybe we could talk with Hannah and maybe at least make sure she's aware of it.
Well, that's the railroad grade that
Right.
Jenkins has fenced off. He has it
Right.
padlocked and everything. So
I was just gonna ask, that's kind of he fenced that off last year, right? Is that true?
no, it's been like
Longer.
4 years.
3 or
It's
4?
been
Okay.
fenced off for 5 or 6 years, but then he put the padlocks up about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so trying to figure out how to get that talked about and stuff. Might just be a long-term thing, who knows?
We've tried to engage with Jenkins, the mayor, talked to him, and we invited him to a meeting that we had with people on the west side there, like the one that the guy, I forget the guy's name, who owns the zip line. And there's a whole, and even Harold Walton and his son were there, but Jenkins didn't show up for the meeting. So we wanted to talk about, you know, that property, to open it back up again, you know, because people were going through there. It was fenced, but the gate was open, so people would use it as a trail to walk their dog or whatever. But then he decided to padlock it off for whatever reason. We haven't been able to really talk to him, open up
Well, I
that
mean,
discussion.
I'm pretty sure he had some vandalism issues, didn't he?
Well, that was what he claimed. He claimed his barn was vandalized, but that's probably not people on the trail, somebody else. So
Well, I mean, but the bottom line, it's private property. He can do.
it is private property. He can do what he wants, but it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Andrea. I think if we can all make some contacts up there, and some randomly, there's a guy named Mike Foose who is buying some property up there, and he was curious how we could help him and how he could help us. But I don't think he's closed on the property. He's buying it from the Waltons, and he's
Oh,
buying
I'm pretty sure he's closed on the property because he's actually been out there working on a piece of land.
on his big 80 acres up high.
Yeah, well, it's on the road that goes to the water treatment plant.
And he's got
And
80 acres that he accesses from the red gate across from Waldo too.
Okay, that's different. He's also got a piece of property that's on the road to the water treatment plant.
Would that
And
help us at all,
he's
Steve?
What do you mean help us?
Would it do anything for this situation that Andrea brought up? His property?
No,
Okay,
no, it's completely different.
okay. Sorry, Andrea, I was
Yeah.
brainstorming.
And you know, and you guys, if you have thoughts on this, or if you have ideas, Steve, you know, like certainly the next like trail subcommittee meeting, we could really talk through that too. And I don't know, get some ideas on next steps kind of thing. And then the last two things were just, you know, we know that we'd like to maybe pursue a trail connection from Creek Walk up to Higginbotham Flats. And that's kind of a future thing. And then we'd mentioned that connection from Bill Bauer Park to Manitou Avenue. And also we're kind of wondering about the rezoning effort process that I think that Skylar had started, and he was having some staff maybe work a little bit on that, but I don't know where that ended up. So, and then other updates there, we're also still wondering about Waldo. And as far as I hear, there isn't a schedule for a NEPA plan to be completed yet. And so hopefully that will happen soon. And the City of Colorado Springs is working on plans for the northern, like another loop above the Northern Return Trail that goes from where it hits the incline, and then it'll go up to the top. So they're in planning stages there, and I think that's Dave Diedemeyer and Emily Duncan that are working on that. So Anybody have questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
And it's good, and we're gonna talk about it more at some point, at the Eagle Mountain and Red Mountain. But I think now is a good time to ask it. Do we know what we want and how we want to connect? Because we had this discussion, the Eagle Mountain easement right now goes directly to private property, to the Crystal Park roundabout. And I think it would behoove us to figure out, and who do we talk to about figuring out what to ask for instead of just asking for an easement that we've always had to private property. How do we figure out the trail alignment, or do you guys have any ideas to get it to GOG and to connect over there? Steve might be the.
There's a trail. It's pretty rough, but yeah, I
But
mean,
instead of
there's a
asking-
trail. There's the trail that goes up to the first switchback, first or second switchback on Crystal Park Road, and then from there it cuts all the way across over
the
to
west.
above GOG and Magog, all the way to the right.
And the way I understand it, our easement is not that. Our easement just takes us up to the switchback. Is that correct?
I don't know.
I believe that's true. I looked at the map and that's what it looks like.
So we're
That
waiting-
trail that I believe Steve's talking about, if you go on that for about a mile, maybe a mile and a half, there's a posted no trespassing sign on that trail that says you're
No.
in private property.
There's if you go for more like 2.5 miles,
Yeah,
then you're
maybe
gonna
so.
get you're gonna get to where the trail ends, and then you have to bushwhack to get back up onto the ATV roads for Crystal Park. And there's some signs where it's posted no trespassing, but that's an old property that's grandfathered in. It's not part of the Crystal Park proper. And but that's somebody else who owns that property. He's got like looks like a hangar.
Yeah, right.
And
No,
that's separate from the Crystal Park.
still
properties.
private property.
It is, but Crystal Park is actually private property as well.
Yeah,
But it's not posted. The only thing that's posted is that one guy's piece of property that he owns is not part of the Crystal Park
like
proper.
Mesos or something like that.
Because Crystal Park, the way the ownership works is everybody owns the postage stamp of their house. And otherwise, everybody that lives up there can go where they want. You can't fence off your house, or you can't put no trespassing signs, because that's part of the
That's
the
not
agreement.
quite true. You do own a footprint of your house, but it's
But the bottom
a
line is,
footprint of about an acre or so.
the bottom
It's not
line though
just-
is it's
just
private
not
property.
just-
Well, yeah, what you can do is if you build the trail below where that guy has posted the no trespassing signs, you can kind of skirt down below and then go down below where the ATV roads are. Then you can come up and join just above the GOG and Magog.
Yeah,
And
so
from there, you could build a trail to the top of Cameron's Cone. I'm not sure what the private property issues are in there, but I think you might be able to just skirt around it and be on National Forest property.
but Steve,
Not
hey,
sure.
here, let me get this like back to, we're not building trails on Forest Service land, but we would like to get an easement from our property to the Forest Service.
Okay.
We need to get some information when we go to renew this easement and ask them for exactly what we want instead of some random easement that goes to private property. So
Well, then
how,
we need to scout it, and we need to look at the property lines and figure out where we want to go.
okay.
I don't think there's been like a scouting or an assessment or anything like that.
I was talking to John, because we're gonna discuss this here in a little bit, and I wonder, yeah, as a group, I mean, I think we need to get this easement renewed as soon as possible, but we need to figure out what we really want from it, because the easement that we're renewing does us no good if the goal is to get to GOG and Magog.
Well, there's another way you can go. You don't have to go up to the switchback on the Crystal Park Road. You can go across, and it goes over down to below GOG and Magog. And
Correct,
then-
but we don't,
No.
the easement doesn't cover that, so we need to figure out what we want. Because it's not just you can't just go anywhere you want, you gotta follow a line on that easement. So somehow we need to tell these people where the easement, it's going to be like 20 feet or whatever we want it. We got to specify. And I think it would,
The easement, the current easement, the one that was from 3 years ago, I mean, it has some specifics in it, but it's like an easement for the construction of, a trail in this general area. One of them is more specific than the other one.
right.
Where does the trail want to go?
That's
Right.
what we need to know.
So, yeah, so what if I just, continue doing what we're doing on other
Yeah.
levels, but generally for our next trails meeting, maybe that's like a primary discussion where we can look at some maps, we can start having conversations about, that specifically. And so that would be next month's meeting.
That would be
the
great.
trails
Yeah.
one. And
'Cause
that
these
may be a
things-
good one to do in person if that was the goal, to do the next regular meeting would be in person. So not that.
Yeah,
one.
and this
Right.
one was supposed to be, but the next one will make it for sure that
Okay.
it is.
Yeah.
And I think that'll help us a lot. And we'll have some more information about those easements, because when we get to number 7, we're all going to be like, oh goodness. So
All right. Well, that
that was my main question. I wanted to let you know the Bill Bauer Park. I'm still talking to Mr. Rose. I reached out to him recently. I haven't heard back from him. Nothing's off the table yet. Just the landowner isn't super motivated. So I'm buzzing him all the time. Oh, you're muted.
think you get good enough at it at some point, but so Seth, do you want to talk about possible rim fee projects and stuff, that document I
Yeah, for sure. Can everyone hear me? I'm using my phone for the first time. Okay, sweet. So I just have a couple things to kind of go over. It'll kind of include the 4B section as well. I'll just kind of bundle everything together. As far as let me back up here. The OSAC shared drive, you said Andrea is no longer there. Should I see? I may have deleted that on accident, I guess, or?
Yeah, well, just look in when you get into Google Drive, just look at your trash and see if it accidentally is there. Because if it's in the trash, you can restore it.
Okay.
I can't see what happened to it, but it's okay. But I sent you a new shared copy of the trail list.
Okay, sounds great.
Excuse me.
So reporting on like the Renfrey project went really awesome this year. The full report's included in the
Excuse me,
packet.
Seth, can I break in here?
Yeah, sure.
We're on this topic. Can you send something out as just a link or something about the OSAC shared drive? I would like to know where that is. It would be useful.
Yeah.
For some of the
So
stuff.
do you use Drive? Do you go into Google Drive and stuff? So if you go into your Google Drive, it was called the Manitou OSAC shared docs. And so I sent it to you at some point via email. I will resend it, except for the fact that it's deleted right now. So it can't go nowhere. So,
Okay.
but I
thanks.
will play with it. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
And I will
That's
resend it.
it.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll put it on my list to look and see if I can find it and get with Andrea on that.
Well, even if you can't find it, then create a new one.
Yeah, for sure. So yep, the full Renfrey report is amazing and beautiful in the packet. Everything turned out awesome. Unfortunately, Mile High Youth Corps did not have a formal report to offer. They did, however, I checked and I pulled up the invoice. I forgot to kind of include it in the packet. I'm not sure, but 2 weeks of Mile High Youth Corps was $8,500 per week, so it would have been about $1,700. They had some staff not present, so they prorated the amount for the 2 weeks for their hours that they logged. So the total wound up being $13,406 instead of 17. So I guess, we saved some money there. Their project came out good. Of course, not as good as Renfrey's, but they did a great job. They reinforced a very steep, washed out gully section of Red Mountain Trail with some existing timber steps that were rotten, and they removed those and kind of reinforced those and built some new timber steps in that section. Over the year, in-house, we did a lot of tread work and kind of basic corridor clearing. And in your packet, pages 39 and 40, I kind of threw together a loose list of some possible contracted big heavyweight projects for next year. We can probably get into this more a little later too when we come to some Renfee talk again. But on there, you can see I have some pictures included of some switchbacks on Red Mountain that still need attention. There's 2 that would be proposed to be reinforced with timbers like the one we just had done. And then there is another switchback that's pretty bad that has exposed boulders that would be really awesome to kind of formalize those boulders and make a rock step section in that area. Another possible project could be there's a very eroded, washed out area on the Red Mountain Trail. It's always Red Mountain Trail, but there, yeah, within the first quarter of Red Mountain Path that continuously experiences a high volume of stormwater drainage, washing out the existing route. Some proposed proper drainage like culvert installation or like a footbridge construction would be great. And then a last one for a bigger project is the steep section of the Intamin Trail right past the meadow section. What I proposed is like a multi-purpose, multi-user friendly steep grade prescription would be like timber steps on half of it, and then the other half would be rock armoring. So as to allow mountain bike path travel as well. And then some possible lower grade Mile High Youth Corps projects. We could always use fire and noxious weed mitigation in our open spaces, and then general trail work as well. And that is kind of all I have to report. If anyone has any questions, let me know. I see Nancy's hand is up. I think she needs to be moved back in.
Hey, Seth, while you're moving her, man, that is an awesome report. That's a totally next level report. I don't think we've seen anything like that.
I appreciate it
before.
The pictures were great.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that we really want to just kind of have some big things lined up, just to know that we have enough work to keep contractors busy over the next few years.
When do we usually have to commit to them, both groups? Is that like in June, we have to be ready to make an offer, or we have to be firm with them, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think we should definitely start talking about it right now, but I'd have to get back to you on specific dates.
Yeah, I could speak to that. I think you want to start having those conversations now, both with Renfee and with Mile High Youth Corps, depending on your scope of work and their availability. The availability of hiring on additional staff or moving their staff from one hitch to another. It's important to get on to their schedule. So I've already reached out to Carl Woody with Renfee and to CJ Runge with Mile High Youth Corps, just to say hello, and have partnered with those folks in the past, and just say continuing those partnerships is something I'm excited about. So I'm familiar with setting up those projects with them, from past experiences too. So getting on it early is always important.
So our next full meeting won't be for February, March. It won't be till April.
Well, Judy, luckily we have a agenda item that discusses these things coming right up with dollar amounts and schedules and everything.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about some goals too. So I think we'll be able to handle anything that's time sensitive tonight. And I did not realize that this awesome report was going to overlap so much on what we're going to be talking about later. So we're in a real, I think this is coming together really well. Does anybody have questions about the Trails Subcommittee or Seth's stuff?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
right now
ma'am.
we can.
Great. Have we heard on the Youth Corps grant?
We did not get it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Do we know why we didn't get it? Was there any criteria letting us know what was lacking this time around? I think that would be really interesting for the next go around for the grant, grant. Anybody know?
They won't comment on it.
Got it.
They never do.
Okay. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
The letter they wrote was like, there's lots of great projects. Yours wasn't
We know
funded,
that.
unfortunately. Yeah.
My experience applying for, I assume it's the CYCA GoCo grant, they do tend to move around who's selected from different agencies, every couple of years. So that's not uncommon, and it doesn't mean we can't throw our hat in next time around.
Any other questions? Whoa. Anybody else have questions? No.
Shannon, I don't have a question, but just on Seth's report, Seth, you can get that information from Mile High. They do have to track number of feet of trail, number of ties installed, all that kind of stuff. If for any reason you would want it, they do track that on every project.
Yeah, there was, she emailed me and I forgot to get the numbers, but they did send a very weak, like 50 feet of trail supported and the stats that you're mentioning kind of thing. And I can get those and include them on the next one for sure.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let's go to old business number 3, open space management subcommittee report and discussion. That's Tim.
Okay.
Tim, you have the floor.
Gracias. All right. Just bear in mind here that this was created from whole cloth. This is the first meeting of the OSAC management subgroup, and that title is about all we had to work with. So we looked at this and went, okay, what can we do that's useful here? And the following, if we just look at the first cap letter A, what do we want from the management subgroup? I'll just go through those 7 items there, and that pretty much sums up the direction that we're taking. The first thing was an OSAC assets database, and we're using database in the large sense here is just a structured collection of data and documents, and that could be implemented with as easily as with some linked Excel spreadsheets and some directory hierarchical directory stuff, or we could actually go into a relational database system. They're cheap and accessible, and they work real well. But the principle here is we're trying to create something useful and something that's easy to use. So what we mean by a database here is something where we structurally organize the data for our named areas, the relationship to parcels, relationship of that to documents, key people, anything that we generally have in OSAC, and get that into a form that we can all use for entering data and retrieving data. With part of that data is the library of OSAC information that's scattered all over the place. And we're just talking about links to that data and to those documents and stuff, but putting them in a place where we can come up with, where we can associate keywords and stuff like that, so we can pull that data together in a simple way. We also talked about, under the database, as a bucket, so to speak, for lessons learned, and too much of that information is just lost in space when somebody leaves OSAC. But we want a place that we can start collecting important lessons learned, and we'll figure out as we go along how to structure that. So this is a prototyping effort. We're going to build on this as we go along over the year and see what it looks like. See if we come up with something useful. I think we will, even if it's just a schematic of all of the data, documents, parcels, and everything else that shows us how everything is linked together. That in itself, I think, would be very useful. The second item, B, on this is an online master OSAC schedule. We've talked about this in the full group here before. And I think that's something that we want to get up there. We want to get up in, whether it's in a Google Calendar or something in Microsoft. We want a schedule that anybody, primarily us, can go to and see out forever, but certainly in the next year, exactly what's going on in OSAC and what events are critical and coming up. And right now we don't really have something we can go to and look at that contains everything for OSAC, a schedule that contains everything for OSAC.
Hey, Tim, for example, would that be like when master plans need to be renewed, when easements need to be renewed?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, I don't know if we would have renewing our easements on the schedule.
For example, we could put in there, Mile High Youth Corps has to be put in, the grant for that needs to be put in. Just everything that has a schedule or a timeline, right?
Right, and we got to figure out how to organize that so it's not just a mess. But yeah, that's the idea. Be able to go someplace, and maybe that's hierarchical as well. Maybe we'll have to think about that. We're just starting to form this. So item C there is master plans for each major named area. This is kind of an interesting one, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. What the heck is a master plan and why we're being forced into doing this? I include in that a master plan for odd lots. But we're certainly not going to have to develop a $50,000 document to cover that, if we even come up with a single document for that. But it's on our radar, and we're going to think about how we do that. A marketing plan for each major named area, including a marketing plan for the odd lots. And what we mean by marketing plan here is we don't currently have people identified, lots that we might want to market to, that we want to keep touching the people, saying, hey, we're here, we really would like to talk to you about your lot and your parcel, and it would make connectivity or whatever. It would be very helpful to OSAC. So keep us in mind, and here's what we can offer, blah, 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 blah. And we need to be sending a letter out, at the very least, a letter out to those people, a couple of times every year. This is very soft touch, since we're not trying to buy anything. We're trying to get somebody to give us stuff. But there are a lot of lots, like all of those lots that are along the south of Manitou, on those platted but never developed roads. That's the majority of our odd lots. And all of those things should be connected together into a single item. We need to condemn some of those roads that aren't used. But mixed in with all of that are privately owned lots. So we need to be tapping those people saying, hey, here's what we're trying to do. And if you can possibly help us out, we'd like you to. So that's what we mean by marketing. Over on Black Canyon, for example, we ought to be finding out who the people are that we need to talk to over there to actually create a trail running up to, what we'd love is to have that trail, that old wagon trail accessible all the way up to the quarry, but that may be out of our purview, but we ought to be talking to those people, and right now we're not. So that's the marketing idea. Item E, evaluation of parcels based on the post in Ordinance 209, and this is what we've been talking about for a long time. We've had that in a Excel spreadsheet, and we never did much with it. We're going to do something with it now. We're going to go out and evaluate those properties along those criterions. F is kind of a map requirements and goals to the subgroup activity, to the management subgroup activity. Goals we have matched thanks to Nancy, that's already done. But we also kind of need to read through the OSAC part of the post and just make sure that we're responding to the goals that are the requirements that have been called out there in our management. And finally, an acquisition process and management guide, document, description, whatever. People have been asking for that. People don't really understand how we go about acquiring properties or managing that process. One of the big problems there is that except for the kind of marketing that I talked about earlier, that's not how we get our properties. We're reactive. We're taking advantage of situations as they come up. So that's something that we just have to be available for. So anyway, that's the outline of what we're trying to do in OSAC management subgroup. Any questions? Any answers? It'll keep us busy for a long time.
It's a lot of ambition here, but all of the things, I think once we make the goal and start plugging in the information, I think it will go together pretty smoothly.
I think it will too. There's not a lot. We don't have a lot of lots, a lot of parcels, which is the centerpiece of everything that OSAC does. We've got maybe 70 of those, and a lot of those are going to collapse if we do things right. So it's not a lot of data, but it is structured in a way that lends itself to a database system, so, and would be very handy in that way.
And I think everybody is really starting to feel and notice when staff leaves or people that have been on these committees or people die, we lose a ton of information. Right now in City Hall, we have no one that works there that knows anything about any of this. And we need to get this going, this database, to prevent this in the future. So I think this is, Tim, you've done a wonderful job. And I think this is all important, not just for us right now to figure it out and make it easier for us to know what's going on, but in the future, when we're not here, we're not going to have any institutional memory. And we need to make that, to be able to make this OSAC thing carry on. I think this is the only way to do it. So
Yeah, I'll give you an example of that. I've got 2,000 files from Mike Mayo that he dumped on us going, hey, you guys really need this. Yeah, I really need that, Mike. Okay. Anyway.
Anybody else have questions for Tim? No? Is that true? Oops, lost you. The next thing is trail maintenance, and we have the agenda, or we have a rim fee draft agreement. Did everybody get a chance to read that?
Yes.
Yes. So I think we've discussed it before. What I went and we talked to Carl and said, hey, just give us a draft. Because we've discussed back in the day, Jennifer Peterson said, hey, I'd like to get into a longer term thing with you guys so we can schedule, we know what money we have. That's their big thing, is they need to know what kind of funding they have to take it to their board. So Carl Woody wrote us a draft agreement, and that's what we have. It's 20 grand a year. I think that we should, I'm sorry, I'm trying to look something up. I think we should discuss getting into a multi-year agreement with them. He said he usually does 5 years. We toned it down and said, hey, give us something for 3 years just to see. And then Seth put together all these big projects that we could have them do. They work with Mile High Youth Corps a lot, so they could use them as well. They incorporate volunteer groups into this. I am gonna look for a motion tonight to make this happen after we have some discussion. So, and if we don't get a consensus, that's fine too. I want to throw it out there, let you guys see the information and see what you want to do. Does anybody have thoughts?
Hi, Shannon. This is Nancy. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is actually great, and to tell you the truth, a little better price than I was expecting. So that's about $6,600 a week, and that's, you know, less money than we paid to Rimfee, I think, when this past year on that project. I did read the agreement, and I think it looks great. I'm assuming that we will discuss as it says in the proposal, we'll discuss together the projects, look at the projects together and that kind of thing. And I'm assuming, for example, the switchbacks, the switchback they did on Red Mountain is probably the most difficult one, but the next couple aren't going to be that easy either. So I'm assuming that we would be responsible for materials on top of this amount. And that it doesn't matter how difficult the work is, that they'll do it in their 3 weeks if we agree on a project, right? We're not going to have to pay them more because there'll be hauling timbers, or like on our last big switchback project. It's just a done deal. We have them for 3 weeks. We agree on the project, no matter hopefully how difficult it is. They're willing to do it at that price.
I would assume, and I think John will speak to this, but I would assume that we would have to talk about the project, and they say that, yeah, we can do that for 20 G's. I don't think we can tell them, hey, we want you to do a $40,000 project for 20 grand. John, can you speak?
Well, I think that's what I'm saying. I mean, they can only get done what they can get done.
Right.
But if that's the project we want to get done, that's kind of it.
Yeah, and we
I don't think that like I say, the materials are the only additional cost. What I'm saying is, if we approve this 20,000 a year for 3 years, we shouldn't anticipate from Rimfee more costs other than materials.
Unless we ask them to do a bigger project than they can do in 3 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a few things I think in there to touch upon, Nancy. So, I mean, the first part is that my experience working with RIMFI under a similar contract is that we identify priorities as park staff, and priorities that would come from OSAC for a given year. So we would meet with RIMFI, identify priorities, and then kind of work together to figure out what could be accomplished. So we said we had 3 weeks. We could look at, kind of our prioritization of maybe our top 3 projects that we'd like to try to get done. And then we would try to work with them to see, what we might be able to squeeze in. And in a given year, you might not accomplish all that you're hoping to. And, sometimes projects need to end up being with RIMFI, a couple of years. You might phase it that way. But that's been pretty common. For materials, typically it's the Parks Department purchasing the materials, and then also the staff time it takes to deliver the materials, as well as our equipment to stage them in different areas. RIMFI also is available to do kind of, I used to work with them on more of a bi-weekly system where we would update and work together to identify how we were going to stage materials and volunteer days and those sorts of things. If we had them for 3 weeks, maybe we could ask to meet weekly to do the same sort of thing. But they're usually, really great partners to work with. I think that this proposal seems like a fair one to me.
Did I miss in the contract where it said those amounts are due? When the 20,000 is due and payable each year? Is it on completion of those 3 weeks?
That is a good question. I did not take note of that. But remember, this is a draft. If we approve the language in it, we'll have a very, I'm guessing, a way more formal contract. Is that true, John?
Yeah, I would have to look to see how Manitou handles contracting. I would take this and follow it up with leadership and with our city attorney.
Yeah, because I would move to approve it if, it looks pretty good to me. I think it would be nice to have them specify a rate if we were to want, for example, another week to finish a project in a given year. What that additional week would cost. Is it going to be at the same rate? And then, I assume when the payment, when payment would be required upon completion of those 3 weeks, or however they need that. But with those changes, I would like to let RIMFI know and let park staff know that we're going to have them for 3 weeks so they can begin planning.
Andrea, did you have questions?
Not really anymore, but I'll just state my general support to enter a contract with them for that at that rate, or 20,000 a year. I'm sorry, that doesn't include materials, right? So that would be whatever projects that they can.
Yeah, depending on your scope of work. If you bought a bunk of timbers, that might be $800 or so. And your other materials, breeze and rock, it doesn't add up to much usually.
And we would definitely, we would have a say in that. It's not just a blank check for materials, right?
Yeah, we would work with them on our scope of work for the project. So we would have identified, pretty well laid out what to expect for material costs.
We have, just to let everybody know, we have 70 grand budgeted for trail maintenance. Trail building, trail maintenance. So I think, and that's 70 grand a year, and we've never come close to spending that. We also haven't gotten a whole lot done hoping for volunteers to come build trail for us and come do things for us.
And then for Rimfi, of course, you all probably know, and I can see from your presentations, you've identified, the Mile High Youth Corps are really wonderful to support, and they're really great for certain projects and to provide experiences. And Rimfi is really great for that technical expertise, and then also for their ability to gather volunteers and really be able to leverage volunteer support and get a lot of work done with the community. So, there's just a really great aspect to supporting the organization.
Yeah, Judy.
I wanted to ask John, John, do you know, has it been standard contract for from your experience with them to give it as a lump sum? Or can you split it and say half now, half when the projects are completed?
Yeah, I'm not certain. That's a good question. I don't know. I could look into it with them.
And what happens if for one of the weeks, let's say that we contract for 3 weeks. So what happens if one of the weeks it rains the whole week? I mean,
They always work with us with makeup days. Rain or snow is common. So
I talked to
definitely
Carl.
happens.
Oh, sorry, John. I talked to Carl a little bit about that. And one of the biggest things with Rimfi is they have a lot of flexibility. When we had the youth corps, it's these days, period. That's all you get. And if not, you saw our scheduling change so much with them that we don't have to do all 3 weeks with them at the same time. It can be 2 here, 2 there, 5 there. We get 3 weeks total, split however it ends up being split up. So I think we have a lot of flexibility with them, because I was concerned about that too. So seeing the work they've done on like Crestone Needle and all that, I don't think there are people that are too shy on weather. So
Usually the issue is heat more with Rimfi. So
Correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption with the Renfi contract would be kind of more so just nailing down, like reserving the time. And then I think that you get kind of an invoice for their services for, that said 3 weeks towards the end of the year. I think that's how it worked this year. Yeah, that's just my thoughts on it.
no, and Seth, I'm pretty sure you're correct on that, because they literally just need to figure out the space and figure out what they're going to have at the end of the year. I mean, they're a nonprofit, so.
Yeah, I don't think they charge you, the whole amount right away kind of thing. So I don't think so.
We can dial those things in. Is anybody ready to make a motion?
Sure, I'd move.
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy. Would you do it
Move
in
to
Spanish?
move to yeah, right. Move to approve the draft. Well, it's kind of weird to approve a draft. The only thing I see to plugs in there, or we could we move to have John negotiate a contract based on the one?
Yeah, how about move to approve a 3-year agreement at $20,000 a year with the things you specify.
What do you mean the
Whatever
things
you
I specify,
Nancy?
Oh, that price per year or price per week be obtained for any additional weeks, and that the contract specify the dates of required payment, or the time and or dates of required payment.
I think that would work. John, what do you think?
yeah, I think that sounds appropriate, and we can we can reach back out to Carl and see if we can add that to the proposed contract.
Can we get a second?
I second.
Judy? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes unanimously. All right, guys. Will, John, will you reach out to Carl and just let him know we have a green light to go with him and whatever it takes to do the next step?
Yeah, sure thing. I'll reach out to him.
Okay.
Thanks for your support.
The second thing on this is the Mile High Youth Corps update. Seth already gave us, we didn't get the grant. I think that it's safe to say we probably want to talk about hiring them. They were 18 grand last year for 2 weeks. What do you guys think? Do we want to keep writing checks while we're writing checks?
I guess my question is for Seth, if he really thinks he can use them on any of these projects this year, or is the RIM fee 3 weeks enough work to get what you think can be done this summer or during
Yeah, bottom line, I think there's plenty of work to be done all across the system, whether it be like supplemental help with RIMFI or solo, or led by me kind of situation. Yeah, I think bottom line, there's plenty of work to be done.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So RIMFI is if we were to make a motion, we would be hiring them for 2 weeks to the tune of 18 grand. Is that correct?
The Mile High Youth Corps.
I'm sorry, Mile High Youth Corps.
Mile High Youth Corps, there's a range based on the type of work that's being performed, so the type of crew you're hiring. So it would depend on the scope assessed projects, but somewhere around $18,000 is about right on.
Do we want to vote on something about that right now? Or John, do you think it'd be better to like reach out to them and see what they think, and then you can just let us know?
I don't know timing wise if you need to do a vote for this to be able to get into their schedule, but you know, we can give you a harder number if that's something that you need. You know, Shannon, I don't know what you'd propose for voting purposes.
I'd like to I'd like to see someone make a motion so we can get this secured, but I don't know.
Shannon?
Yeah.
Just a comment. So what's tricky here is there's a big difference in the cost between the charge of a week of a trail crew and the charge of a week of a saw crew or a insecticide crew. So it starts to get more and more important exactly what kind of work we have. A trail crew, you can approve the 18. I don't know what the rates are this year. I know they've gone up. But if you're talking about a chainsaw crew, for example, to do wildfire mitigation, the cost will be significantly more than that. So
I don't think that's on our agenda, right? I wonder if we could make a motion to approve up to a dollar amount. And what would that dollar amount be?
Or you could just say 2 weeks of Mile High Youth Corps work,
and then
the money will come back. I mean, then we got to figure out what kind of crew.
That's a good idea. So that way we can at least get them on a schedule, and then a dollar amount, we could approve that in March.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I want to entertain a
If
motion.
if that'll work for Mile High, if we can get them on a schedule based on that.
Well,
I can tell you that she would rather know what type of crew now, but there's a little flexibility because they run summer and fall crews both. You know, if we can't get a trail crew this summer, if we let her know we're looking at 2 weeks, and we'll know what kind of crew in the next, I don't know, what do you think is reasonable, John? in the next 2 months, whether it's a chainsaw or trail crew or.
Yeah.
pest-
And you know, in looking at Nancy, looking at their rates for 2023, it's pretty similar to last year. So if you were looking at a hand crew, that's $8,580 per week. A saw crew is $10,955 a week. And then there's the additional fee for supplying their wood chipper if we requested that, so $1,100. And then working with them, of course, too, they do like hybrid crews. So yeah, I mean, we'd probably be somewhere around there in the 18 to, I don't know, you could say $25,000 maybe on the top end.
Mhm.
But of course, there's
Okay.
I was gonna say there's nothing, if we could take a look at it before we actually bid the amounts, there's nothing to prevent us from saying, well, 1 week we'd like to do this and that requires this kind of crew, and then this week, the other week, we'd like to do this and that doesn't require that technical level. And maybe this gives us a chance to take that thought and get this organized. But
Well,
is that
could we, Seth, are we gonna use them with a saw crew in any way, shape, form, or fashion?
So from my conversations with staff over the 2 weeks that I kind of hung out with them, they were, if I recall correctly, they were saying that their saw crews are booked for like possibly years kind of thing. So I'm not
Do
sure.
we even have saw projects that would need a saw crew?
Nothing right now, no.
Okay, so that could just solve that problem, right?
I mean, yeah, we could definitely just shoot for a hand crew and put them to work.
Right. We don't see any like surprise saw crew stuff coming up.
big windstorm.
Yeah, and anything with a windstorm, like we had a couple big conifers fall on Red Mountain last year, kind of thing, and me and a couple guys just took a chainsaw up and cut it
Well,
up.
we don't have the time to wait if it's a windstorm for Mile High
Right.
Youth Corps to come around. So
Correct.
I think we'd be safe just going to hand crew, right?
I think so.
Okay, I'd move to approve 2 weeks of a Mile High Youth Corps handsaw crew for 2023.
And just a hand crew, right?
Yep. I mean, yeah, sorry, not handsaw. They don't
Anybody-
even have one of those.
Anybody want to second that? Andrea, seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. So we're at 38 grand on trail maintenance for the year. I think that is awesome. We're gonna get a lot of stuff done again. We're still under budget and we have room to play if things come up. So
We're at 38 grand, aren't we?
yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, sorry.
Didn't I? Maybe I didn't. But yes, 38. All right, let's go to the next one. Number 5 is the West Side LLC and the Colorado Springs Parks update. I have some information. John, I think, is going to get more information, but this has to do with the Black Canyon, and this is also going to segue into a conversation about the Black Canyon open space. As you guys all recall, Skylar had been telling us that this West Side LLC was getting ready to change hands into Colorado Springs, and Colorado Springs had no problem giving us this easement and everything was going to be perfect. And we were just waiting for paperwork to be done. I talked to Dave Diedemeyer before Christmas, probably the beginning of December, and just said, hey, because we kept asking Skylar, when is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? And Dave Diedemeyer said this is not on their priority list. It came from somewhere up above him, and it's not happening. So that puts us into kind of a little situation. We don't have access to the Black Canyon legally, to our Black Canyon open space. And we had talked our priority list for this year. The Black Canyon was number 2 of our top 3 priorities, to do a master plan to figure out trails in there. I talked to Palmer Land Trust. They don't, Steve, how, and I'll talk to you more about that later, but Steve did not see it being very fruitful for us to do a master plan on a piece of property that we do not have legal access to. So today,
Shannon?
yes. Go ahead.
Who do you want to go ahead? Me.
I think you.
You keep saying we don't have legal access to. We do have access, it's just too steep, right?
Well, that's what I was getting ready to go to next.
Okay, all right.
Today, John and Seth and I walked. We have about, I'm going to say 1,500 feet of our Black Canyon comes down to the road. And if you walk that, we walked it with an Onyx, looking to know exact, and Tim was there too, exactly what our property is and isn't. Just kind of looking for weaknesses in that cliff. Just to see if there was a chance that we could punch something through that cliff band. If you guys, I wanted to give you guys the information. I don't know if West Side's going to happen. John's going to talk to Dave a little bit more and see if it's forever gone. It's real vague right now. So I think we need to have a discussion about this master plan because that's one of our top priorities. Do we want to see if we can put some kind of, I think Nancy used to call it the stairway to heaven through that cliff band? What do we want to do? How do we want to approach this? And what are you guys' thoughts? Tim?
Yeah, well, I think we agreed that it wouldn't quite be a stairway to heaven, that we could get on the other side where that culvert is and then go back over. And then we have an area that's steep, but not impossible for switchbacks. And it would take us up there. It would be a steep hike getting up there. Of course, our hope is that we end up with other access, but we could still get up there. So, yeah.
I think it would warrant a site visit with all of us, a posted site visit to go up there and look at it. Probably want to do that when there's not snow on the ground.
Yeah.
But we kind of need direction how hard we're going to pursue a Black Canyon open space management plan. What are thoughts?
Without the management plan means there would be no public access to the open space, correct?
Right. Well, I mean, the public access that is there now is through a very steep access that has no trail. We've always been trespassing to get there, but we've always.
Or I don't know.
What's that?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, not we. I have always been trespassing to get there. Anybody else that's been there probably was too, but I don't know that for a fact. We have been under the assumption that we were going to have, well, we thought we had that easement coming around the back. Jeff Parker put a ixnay on that. And we also thought that this West Side LLC was going to come to us. And we were told by West Side LLC that they were going to donate it directly to Manitou if everybody remembers that. That was going to happen. That was pre-COVID. And then out of the blue, they said, we are donating it to Colorado Springs.
And they went through some steps to do that, but then the city of Colorado Springs decided they don't want to take the donation. Is that what's going on? Or-
Diedemeyer told me that it came from higher up, that it's not on his priority of to-dos.
You know,
Yeah.
I
Nancy.
wonder, it's too, it's too bad. People, we don't have the same relationship that we did have with Colorado Springs because because of turnover. But I just wonder if it's worth, they're great land swappers. They've participated in a lot of controversial land swaps in the past. This isn't controversial for them at all. I think maybe we just haven't talked to the right person about just facilitating this for us. Parks and Rec and in Colorado Springs, and I think the county, everybody would support us getting that access. And if
Everybody
if we're
except Cedar Heights.
Yeah.
right, yeah. Well, that's another fish to fry. But I mean, just in terms of Colorado Springs, if we offer to pay for any legal fees, etc., I would think that they'd be very, willing to take possession and give it to us. We just haven't talked to the right people yet. And maybe John has relationships with their, since Tim Wilkin is gone, I don't really have a, but Scott, I mean, there's gotta be, or even talking to the city council members. I mean, I don't know. It's not a priority, but could we maybe make it a priority if we make it easy for them?
Nancy, I'm planning to reach out just to learn more and kind of putting it out there that way, that I'm new and there's this opportunity and, tell me what you know kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to learning more. And, I think I have great relationships over in Colorado Springs. So, I'll let you know as I learn more how the conversation goes.
So John, do you know what we're talking about,
Perfect.
that West Side LLC property?
I do.
Okay.
Shannon's
Because,
helped to familiarize myself with it a little bit, at least.
yeah, because it'd be good if you had it all squared away in your mind, what we need, what we need to have to, make the access available, and then go talk to those people at Colorado Springs and see what you can do. But I agree with Nancy, we need to open up the conversation to more people.
Yeah.
Because there are people there at Colorado Springs who want to help us, that want to make this work for us. Because it's going to benefit not only us, but it's going to benefit them to have access to that new Waldo Canyon trailhead, for people coming from Manitou Springs. I think there would be definitely a win-win.
Steve, do you know who we'd talk to?
Recording in progress.
Well, I'm just thinking of people. I think Kurt Schroeder retired, but Scott Abbott, Sarah Brierly, I think works part-time over there. She's a real good person.
I'm Steve. I worked over there for the past 9-something years, so I'm
Okay, so you're the
with
one.
the whole department.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
I can think of a few folks to reach out to, so I'll get that started and I'll kind of work with Shannon to
Perfect.
keep you all updated just how those conversations go.
I wanted to let you guys know, I think John is our literally best case scenario for this situation. So Dave did say that he had a new director coming in. I want to say Britt or something.
Yep. Britt Haley. She's the new
Yeah, and he
director.
said he was going to discuss that with her and see where that went and if she could change the mind of whoever. So
Would it be smart to table this conversation until we get more input through John?
we don't really have an action item. I just wanted to let you guys know.
Well,
If we do have to do the stairway to heaven, I just would hope that we could do anything we could to either, one, enable access, and two, make a sustainable trail that's not just. well,
It would be something that we'd really have to think hard about. So,
that would be a good reason to have an on-site.
yeah. And I think let's give John a chance here, see what he can find out. And if he comes back to us and says, hey, 5 years, it's going to change, then we at least know. Or he could say, there's no way, it's never going to happen. And then we need to start looking at our plan Bs, Cs, and Ds. But we've all made it a priority that we want to get this open and accessible. And these are gonna be the hurdles we have to do it. So I think there's a way through that cliff that it will be switchbacks, but it's not gonna be. When we looked at it with Seth too, and that guy knows his stuff, and John does as well. I mean, it's not opportune, but it could be done, and I think it will be probably pretty sustainable and probably bikeable too. So
Wow.
hard, but
So that was the general impression that you all took away, that it would be possible?
Yeah.
Hard, but possible?
I'm
Yeah,
telling you,
and you know, that's
this is for Seth.
one-
I'm telling you, there's a chance.
that's another thing that we could use Remfi to consult on when you're talking about projects.
Yep. So if there was a lot of drama with the West Side LLC, we still got it. We're still good. We still have, it will just be more complicated than we thought.
Mhm.
Any other questions, comments? Nope. So let's move to Palmer Land Trust report. Just real quick, I reached out to Palmer Land Trust because we've been having these questions about the renewals and the updates, and we've had a change of leadership over there literally once a month. The new guy over there is named Steve Harris. He's been around for a long time. I think he was one of the very founding members of TOSC. He sounds like he's going to be there for the rest of his life. He's very excited to be there, and this guy knows his stuff. Me and Tim met with him. I told him that I just wanted a Palmer Land Trust for dummies. I really just wanted to really know what they do. Why are we in cahoots with them? And how can we figure out these land management updates without spending 50 grand each time? They only have I think we're like their biggest client in the area. They have a couple properties with Colorado Springs, but we're their main partner over here. And we get in cahoots with them when we use GoCo money. GoCo makes us put it in the Palmer Land Trust, for anybody who didn't understand that. I did not understand that. The major takeaway is our updates. He said everybody is going through the same problem, and by the deed that, like the conservation easement, what do you call that? The piece of paper they have that's connected to our piece of property
The
outlines
conservation easement.
the conservation easement outlines exactly what we have to do with our management plans. Our Red Mountain, and Tim, correct me, I could have these mixed up. Our Red Mountain one is pretty vague, and it does not specify that it has to be done. It just says as needed, basically. The Iron Mountain one says a timeline when it has to be updated. The bottom line is Steve's going through all these pieces of property, not just us, but other ones. And he's going to make it where we do not have to write a whole new plan to update these things. He's going to get back with us. We don't have to get with him. It was before we were worried that someone is going to come take our property because we hadn't updated our management plan. Steve said, don't worry. He's going to do some paperwork that makes it where there'll be some kind of something that he's going to give us, but it could be a while. So we don't have to worry. Anybody have questions? Did I say that right, Tim? Go ahead.
Yeah, you said that right. Let's remember that we've been in this position before where they were supposed to send us a document that said that we did not have to update these things, but we could just say that nothing has changed.
Yep.
I don't think that document ever arrived.
We've heard that from 3 stewardship directors. I think Steve is going to be there a little bit longer than the other ones were. And this is the first guy we've actually met in person from there. I'm pretty excited to have him. He also said he's getting connections and he's going to look into that easement on the backside of Black Canyon that we got told no about. So I think that we've got an ally with him. And I think
Sounded like it.
What's that?
Sounded like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to let you guys know, we should be getting more from him. He's a great guy. He's a really strong ally. I'm excited about that. Any other questions, comments?
Just one comment, Shannon. We have had we have had people in his position in the past attend meetings. So they, they've been pretty hands-on at certain times in the past, but
Yeah, I
hopefully-
remember Candace used to come a lot.
Candace, yep, came, and we had some annual walkthroughs. Actually, we had annual walkthroughs with somebody from Palmer every year for the last several years. So it's not like they've been completely hands off.
No, I'm just
But-
talking about the stewardship director position. That has
Right.
changed hands a lot.
No, it's going to be great to have him.
Yep. So number 7, Red Mountain and Eagle Mountain easement renewal. We've had, this has only really come up. Mike Mayo, it used to be a 5-year thing, and then then somehow it changed to a 3-year renewal. I started wondering because it seemed like for a little while there, we never heard about these things at all. They just got renewed. So I reached out to Mike Mayo. Why are we doing this? And you'll see there's some paperwork in there. Apparently, Michelle Anthony used to just do this. So it never really came to OSAC. It just got done. Michelle's not here anymore. And I guess the last time it went through the process, the COG turned it into a 3-year agreement, a 3-year renewal instead of a 5-year. I started looking at it a little bit. It sure seems like, and Steve, you would probably know the most about this, it looks like our whole Red Mountain Trail, or a whole lot of it, is on COG property. Does anybody else notice that?
Yes,
Yes.
a big chunk of it.
So I'm curious, and I think this might be something we can talk to city council with or planning. And I asked Mike Mayo, why don't we have a permanent easement on, and we need to break them up into 2 different things. Red Mountain, why don't we have a permanent, it's like the crown jewel of our open space. And I'm curious how this even happened where we don't have a permanent easement on that trail. And Mike said, Michelle just told us it couldn't happen. So I think that we need to ask or do something more aggressively. I don't know, Judith, if we have some negotiation room with like conditional use permits with them. I know you guys are talking about the excise tax again. Can we slip this in there? Like, hey, we want this too while we're at the table.
Well, I think one of the problems with planning in the past is that things have been slipped in. So this didn't happen on my watch or Steve Bremner's watch, but let me tell you, it needs to come to the attention of the new planning department, which I have a tremendous amount of respect and think they have integrity and transparency. And we need to take another look at this because you are absolutely right. And we need to bring COG representatives to the table to resolve this issue, to make sure that those trails that I can't remember which one actually crosses the tracks, but to take a look at all of the trails that are involved on COG property and have an agreement with them for easements for those trails. So that's about all I want to say about it now, but it needs to, I would love to see that come to this council before a new council is elected, because I think there's some robust interest in making that happen this year.
Well, this has to happen for us really quick. Because
It does.
are due now. And I just think as a committee, we need to be really aggressive in our ask instead of just say, they didn't want to, so we didn't do it. And I want to know from council or planning, how much teeth do we have? Do either one of those, the council or planning, have our back? Are they the ones that come really aggressively to the COG and say, we need this? Like,
well, I never speak for other council members. However, I will say that any negotiations with the COG have to be robust and with intense interest. And I know Steve is helping you with diplomatic language, but I really think that it has to be a priority and it has to come soon. And so the process would be to get certainly John involved, planning department, city, and then bring that to bring a really airtight presentation so that we can then negotiate with the COG about these things. I'm not saying the COG would not be open to these negotiations. I'm just saying that it's not going to be a one-off. It's going to take some time. And I think the earlier that OSAC starts this process, the better. And if Steve has anything else to add, I'd
Well, my
Which is
question
great.
would be, would it be OSAC's purview to do that, or would it be planning?
I think it's great for OSAC to start the conversation, go to planning, really, and again, I really think now, in the past, some things were done that just slipped through the cracks. We're not operating that way anymore. And I think
And
the
you know,
planning,
Judith, let me back up. I do not think that anybody did anything wrong. I think when you had a planning department that literally consisted of one person, this probably wasn't high on her priority list.
yeah, and we now have a phenomenal new Parks and Rec director, and also I think very highly, I can't say enough wonderful things about the new employees in our planning department. I would say though that this is a discussion that I would start with OSAC. Certainly bring John in the mix, have a discussion with planning, and then to collectively develop a plan to bring to the COG representatives, and then say this is what we want. Don't ask, tell them this is what we want and need, and this is why, and then start the negotiations there. So I think it can be done, and I actually think it can be done this year. So Steve, if you have any other thoughts, I'm happy to. You've had some additional relationships with COG representatives, so I defer to you for anything else.
Well, my relationships haven't been all that rosy, but
Yeah, we need tact.
Shannon,
That's weird coming from me.
Shannon,
Yeah.
we've got a kind of a bigger issue before this. Red Mountain, absolutely, we should have a permanent easement. But Eagle Mountain is not our trail. It's
Right,
not
we
on
talk-
our
we
open
talk-
space. What?
We talked about that earlier. I agree with you. Keep going though. Sorry.
Well, that's just it. It's not in our open space. It's not our trail. It would be a big deal for us to take that trail on, but we don't have any standing to take it on. And I don't think that OSAC, I mean, I'm not speaking for myself now, but I wouldn't want to take on that trail. It's more than we can handle as a little town, building trails up to Eagle Mountain and Gog and Magog. It's not in our purview any more than the incline is in our purview.
Well,
And
I disagree. I mean, I think it's a collaborative effort. I don't know that it would just be Manitou. I mean, we might be a champion for that for like the sake of our residents, but
well,
but we
let me-
don't
let
own
me-
it. We don't own any part of it. We
But
don't
we-
own any part of it.
Can I say something real quick? We cannot build trails on United States Forest Service land. That is a
Yeah.
fact. We are not going to be doing that. But we could get an easement to connect our property to their trails.
which they've given us in those easements for the past umpty-ump years.
But
Two-
they
they gave-
haven't. We don't have that. We just figured that we don't have any easement across the COG property to.
Well, I think it's advantageous to pursue that easement. Because there are trails that exist, they are very rough trails. And just to have the possibility to build those trails out to connect to the national forest would be a wonderful asset for Manitou Springs residents or
But we need, I
tourists
think
or
we need
all
to
that.
just specify, I hear what Nancy's saying. We're not building an Eagle Mountain Trail. But we need to get access to the forest via our property over there. This is my personal opinion. We are not gonna build, we can't. I mean, building a trail in the Forest Service is NEPA studies and all kinds of things that we are not gonna do as a small town. But if we could get access to the trails that exist already, I think that's a great asset. But our easement right now does not do that. And that's what I was saying in your presentation earlier, Andrea. We need to figure out what we want, like a specific, and Steve, I was asking for your help too. Like, let's back it up. We're not building a trail up Eagle Mountain. We're making access from our trails to whatever's over there. And if it's rogue trail builders, if it's whoever, whatever they're doing, doesn't matter. We're going to access it. That's all that our scope encompasses. We do not get to build, we are not building trails on, we're not tasked with that. That's not our gig. But if we can access them, sweet. But we need to ask for what we need, not just some random easement that goes literally to the turntable on Crystal Park Road. We're trespassing. We cannot condone that. So let's get this easement renewed, stop the bleeding, and then let's figure out and ask. Let's figure out what we want as a group and how we can access Gog and Magog, because I agree 100%. Let's get those accessible. Maybe a trail up Cameron's Cone, but we're not building that. We're not going to do that. We can't. Does that make sense?
Well, the trails exist, the rough trails to Cameron's Cone and all that, they already exist. So if we connected, like you say, to just went to the national forest and stopped.
Right. And then
that's perfect. Yeah.
That's all we do not, and we can't even say that we want to build a trail in the Forest Service land, because Oscar Martinez will call us and say, what are you doing? That's what we do. That's not our thing, but we can open it up for access. And then
Oscar's gone.
Yeah. I don't keep up with whoever, but you know what I'm saying, hopefully. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Nancy?
Well, I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know. I mean, we're talking about giving access. I mean, I see nothing wrong with finding out if we can have access, but I can imagine part of saying we want access is the COG saying, well, why do you want access? And it's not because we're building trails, it's because why? We want to give access to any hiker to your property. I mean, I don't know. I just think we need some help in this matter.
Yeah, I think we need to have a reason and a specific ask. But I was talking to John the other day. I think maybe because we need to renew these, like, let's get them renewed. And then we need, I think.
Well, if we can even get them done for 3 years while we really think about
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Get them renewed. And then I think we need to aggressively ask for Red Mountain to be a permanent thing. And in the meantime, we need to figure out what we want in this Eagle Mountain thing. I mean, we could even call it Gog Magog or something else. Eagle Mountain is kind of deceptive because
Eagle Mountain is private property.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And I know the guy who built that steel structure up there. It's cool. But we need to figure out what we want. We need to figure out our ask and then aggressively go after it instead of just saying, oh, they said no.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Andrea?
You know, when the worst that can happen is they say no and give you an answer, I think it's worth pursuing, or at least having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that conversation needs to be had regardless of the outcome. I think this is a great time to have it too. And when I say great time to have it, it's, the planning department has really finished a huge ask of the city in, the land use development code. If we were not done with that, I would say, please don't ask anything of the planning department because they've already been doing 12-hour days for so long. But this is a really good time to say, okay, let's pause and say, and this is our ask, and get at least, if nothing more, some feedback from Jeff Parker, our city attorney, and planning department and so on, so our ducks are in a row, and then OSAC can decide, do we want to pursue this or not? But I think knowledge is power, and I think gaining some knowledge about where the COG would stand about that this is great timing. So.
Anybody have any questions about that?
I
We'll
will
get
put
to
the-
it. Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to put out a caution here that the COG may very well be shortening these easements for periods for a purpose, for negotiating. And we're liable to find ourselves in a difficult situation with them. It's possible. I mean, there's a reason that these things have been going from 5 years down to 3 years. And
Yeah,
they
I mean,
may have something in mind on that.
you're 100% right. They're not doing this randomly,
No, they're not.
but Red Mountain's important. And I think we will, I mean, whatever we got to do there, we're going to do. So hopefully John will kind of figure out how to renew these things. And then us as a committee can figure out, because that will give us some breathing room, and then figure out exactly what our options are. And, you know, it'd be cool to maybe do God, that's probably illegal, but take a little site visit up Eagle Mountain. So, or maybe everybody get a GPS coordinate and do it at their own leisure and figure out what we want to ask for. So I don't know how we do that, but.
Well, we don't do it till the snow melts.
Right.
I think one other thing, I think the Red Mountain easement is, it's not COG, isn't it, Bill? Planning Commission bill?
There's Bill Kerner's, but that's
Bill
kind of a
Kerner's
no-brainer.
property,
But there are
right.
also a lot of it on COG Railroad or COG property, which
For
I
Red
do
Mountain?
not
Yeah.
know how that even got done.
But the access to Red Mountain is Intamin, and we have that easement, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so nothing's gonna keep us from Red Mountain. That's why Bill
Our
Kerner
trail,
brought that
Nancy,
property.
our Red Mountain Trail is mostly on COG property.
Our Red Mountain Trail. I thought our Red Mountain Trail was on our open space. We couldn't have,
No, it's not.
I wasn't aware of that.
yeah,
So-
Red Mountain is not on.
Yeah,
If
So-
it is, it's news to
educate
me.
me. Yeah,
Well, if you look at the packet, there's a hand-drawn map. And if you superimpose that hand-drawn map, I'm going to tell you what page it's on. Because I didn't think this either. Tim brought it to my attention. I said, "There's no way in hell that this is true." Because why
No.
would we need an easement from the COG Railroad for Red Mountain? Was
We
my first.
don't.
Okay, it's on page 27. It's a hand-drawn, well, probably not hand-drawn, but it's
It's alignment.
a line map. You'll see Kerner's property, Pikes Peak Railroad property. And you'll see at Kerner's property, the Paul Inneman Trail. We have that easement. The Red Mountain Trail that goes due south. And it very quickly goes on to the COG Railroad property. Now you take this map and you superimpose it on any GPS, and sure enough, most of that trail is on the Cog Railroad property. You guys looking at that?
Yeah, I think there's got to be some easement or something you don't know about.
It's this easement that
Because-
we're trying to renew.
Huh. Okay.
This
I
is
called-
from that easement.
This is the paperwork in the easement.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in complete disbelief and called Mike Mayo and like, what? How is this even possible? That we have to renew an easement every 3 years on our literal crown jewel of our open space.
Do you have a map that shows the boundaries of the open space overlaid on this?
You can look at that on any website. You can look at that on El Paso County Assessors, Onyx, Gaia, Google Maps
Okay.
with land ownership. That line that comes right down, right by the point of the Red Mountain Trail bubble is the property boundary of our open space.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now on the assessor site. And the thing that's really easy to spot is that, what do they call it? That Fairview piece that's all of those triangular, there's about 20 of them, one right next to the other. And the undeveloped road that runs through that is called Fairview. And it's really easy to see that, yeah, that's not where our trail is. It's not on our property.
Well, we need to get that done for sure.
Yes, I think it's very
Yeah.
important. And I think we can all agree that this is very important and it needs to be an
Yeah.
aggressive ask. So,
Big deal. I see it. I think you've got a really great team behind you with the planning department, the new planning department, and with John coming on board. And I think this is I'm grateful this came up because I as a council member wasn't aware of this. And I think it needs to be brought to our attention and addressed. So thank you for that. I apologize. I didn't know that. So lesson learned. I see it.
okay, you guys ready to move on?
Yeah.
The next thing is goals and how are we going to do those goals? That's right on the agenda, right? I just lost that. Our number 1, 2, and 3 goals were Serpentine Master Plan. And these are the ones where we had to pay, to get the votes. Remember that little game we played? Number 2 was a Black Canyon Open Space Master Plan. And 3 was a Bowers Park connection. And John, let me give you some background. Skylar came to us and said, hey, we really need a master plan for Serpentine. Because it's Creek Walk. It could be it's the very far west side of Creek Walk. And we would like Parks and Rec is going to do, or Parks is going to do a master plan at the top on Higginbotham. And he was saying that it could be if we put the two of them together, and everyone please correct me if I'm leaving something out. If we put the two of them together, we'd have more of an opportunity to get a big GOCO grant to develop that whole situation over there. Am I regurgitating that right? Yeah. So he said our Serpentine master plan should be pretty easy compared to the Parks master plan. And he said, if we do one, then Parks can come up to us with their master plan. And he said it should be about $50,000. I don't know who he'd talked to, but we as a group did an exercise with Denise to come up with our priorities, and Serpentine master plan was our number 1 priority to get that done. So I guess we need to figure out, how do we get that going? That was a thumbs up, I think.
That, just to tell you that comment did come up at council, that GoCo said no to some projects, but that the opportunity to get them to approve the Serpentine project was highly likely. So I think moving forward with that would be really a good thing. So
John, what do you need from us to go forward with that? I think one of our main goals was to get a trail from Serpentine up to Higginbotham.
I could really use any background that you all can give me for Serpentine. What I'd like to do too is to follow up with one of our local GoCo reps just to see what they think, how it could fit within their priorities. I think that would be a good starting point. And, you know, I think we can kind of take it from there.
Okay.
On the face of things, it seems like a good plan. I like the idea of putting those two together. Go ahead, Judith.
well, the other thing that raised the interest in GoCo was the fact that Carib is working on a Higginbotham Park plan, and GoCo seemed to be, you know, an opportunity to really tie into that, because that whole Higginbotham Park plan could include the trail that comes down and hooks to any creek walk opportunities we have. So so that was another discussion that was had about, this is a great opportunity because Para working on the Higginbotham Park.
Skylar was
Which I-
talking big about connecting them and doing a GoCo grant.
Exactly,
A big
exactly. Yeah, and that GoCo would probably really be very positive to fund something of this scale.
Okay. I think it would be helpful for me too to probably get with Dole to get some more background there. You know, I am coming into this pretty new, so I'm not as familiar with these, you know, these areas and the history as you all are. So getting some time to get some of that background would be really helpful for me too. So anything you want to share with me early on would be appreciated.
Dole probably has the most information about Serpentine. It was a weird property, is one of those things that kind of came up to us and we had to act kind of quickly on it.
Mhm.
We acquired it. And
It was the
not
owner,
really,
the owner of the
Yeah.
bottle shop. Is that ring
Yeah,
right?
that's the one I was telling you about.
Right.
Okay.
And-
It
but
was not really
also-
on our radar to even purchase. But then it came and bam, we did it. So
Also, John Danu Fat, the chair of Harib, co-owner of, you know, a parcel that became that area, has been working with, I know GoCo with regards to some things on Soda Springs. So she would also be someone I would definitely talk to about that.
Okay. I don't think I have, you know, next steps for you right now. I think I'm kind of still in information gathering, right? But you know, I know the GoCo reps too, so you know, I think that they could give me some good background in terms of, you know, here's what might be available out there.
And just to add, I mean, the reason that we purchased Serpentine is because of Creek Walk.
Okay.
good point.
And to
So
be a good partner with the city.
So with that said, our next priority was Black Canyon Master Plan. I'm not sure where we stand with that without access to the property. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, kind of sounds like we've at least outlined a next step with
Right.
John, kind of trying to work with City of Colorado Springs, see what's up with the West Side LLC thing. Do we want to like say we get that land? I mean, what are the next steps as far as like if we wanted to start creating access there? Like, do we need to do a whole master plan? Like, what's the whole thing? How do we do it? Like, do we need to hire a consultant? I don't know.
I think one of the first things that we really need to do is get Dylan and Michael to finish that cultural and archaeological assessment that they've been working on for what, like 4 or 5 years now. Just finish that, and then we can start moving on from there. Because I mean, without it, building those trails in areas where they're contending and it could be sensitive, it'd be irresponsible. But they've been dragging their feet for years and years and years on this.
Maybe
So
we should reach out to one of the other archaeologists he's working with, you know?
I talked to one of the archaeologists and he said the beginning of the year we should get a report. So I'll touch base with him again.
Would that be Bo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Robin, would you CC me on that as well? Or send me their contact information? I'd like to just ping them to see what they can share. And I can be the new guy and they can update me with, hey, I'm checking in on this. Where is this at?
Okay, sure.
I believe, and I could be totally wrong, but I believe we need like an official master plan to satisfy the Palmer Land Trust.
That's correct.
Did we buy that did we buy that property through a GoCo grant?
I believe,
Yes.
yes. There was actually a GoCo sign on private property over there, which I thought was odd.
Yeah. But yes,
so-
that's why there's a conservation easement on it, is because GoCo required it when they helped us buy the property.
So we've got to satisfy the Palmer land.
And it is in our conservation, it
Stewardship.
is in our contract, our conservation easement contract with the Palmer Land Trust, that we have that.
Right.
So
It's-
I think like Andrea said, we do have the ball rolling, but I think the master plan thing might be kind of on the back burner until we hear some options from John. Right?
And I'll
Go ahead, Nancy.
maybe John is familiar with some of the contractors and consultants that do master plans on open space. The previous ones we've used are listed on our current master plans. And I know the Colorado Open Space Coalition also keeps lists of people, because it would be something we'd have to put out to bid. I know it would be well over $10,000. But it's not something that OSAC can do. I mean, it's something we'll have to contract for. But we can start getting that in the budget, and perhaps John can start researching some names and their reputations as far as doing that for us.
We have them in the budget. We put them in with our priority list at 50 grand each.
And they could kind of, I mean, I hate to have them do 2 scenarios, but we could talk about, one scenario is we have to do the Stairway to Heaven, and the other scenario is we have that Westside LLC property as the access point. I mean, those are significant differences, but there are also significant points of interest on that property that we know would want to be, included in any trail alignment and some of those kinds of things. So I don't know. It's probably still too early to do that, but we could at least start knowing the cost and the possible contractors.
Our third priority was about Bill Bowers Park connection. John, that was Bill Bowers Park. There's that. Did I tell you about that little open space that we might be able to connect down through that?
Yeah, that was up in the Crystal Hills neighborhood, right?
I made a connection with the landowner up there. He had a lot going on. As I said, he said he's 100% down to do it. We just don't know when or how it's going to happen. So that's something that's always there. Do we want to talk about any of these other priorities of making them a little bit higher priorities, since Black Canyon is kind of, what do you guys think? Is it's not gone away, but it's not something we can take immediate action on? Is there any, I'm looking at the priority list. Is there anything on there that we can take immediate action on or get the ball rolling that we weren't planning on getting the ball rolling quicker?
What's next on the list?
The next on the list was the Iron Mountain Trail connection. That would have been a trail that Tim talked about.
Mhm.
I'm gonna just somehow, I'm gonna just say we want to put that kind of on a back burner because of what we were going to talk about in the executive session.
Okay.
Number 5 priority was funding a full-time position, but we said we wanted to hear from John on that full-time open space position. I think we probably need to give John some time to figure out if that's a thing. Is that, what do you think, John?
We will never say no to more full-time positions. But yeah, I think taking some time to understand exactly what our needs are is important. So I know Skylar did great work and I'm trying to build off of what he did, but yeah, let's take a little time.
So that brings us to 6 and 7, the Midland Trail easement, which is what Andrew was talking about and Steve was talking about. That's the Jenkins property. I don't know what to do there. What can we do? How do we just start calling Jenkins every day? What would
Well,
you-
and I think just getting people informed about our interest in it and figure out who can have some conversations if any relationship is really established at all. But as long as like we're clear on our ask, we're like, this is what we want, that would be a good thing to do. So maybe we can, at the next trails meeting next month, we can really maybe outline that and talk about that one as well. Like look at the Red Mountain and look at the yeah, I'm not sure what to call that, the Ute access or whatever they call it, the Jenkins property.
I would just, yeah, I mean,
Ute access trails is pretty good.
Ute access trail. Okay. Yeah.
so I think we can start working on that quicker than we thought.
Mhm.
And Eagle Mountain Trail, that's number 7 priority in the list. That's as far as the numbers went. And I think we've already discussed that and where we're at with that. It's a big priority. So
Just imagine that the Wildcat Gulch stairs were not prioritized there because we thought we might already have it funded through GoCo. So that's going to pop up as.
So it's on the trail maintenance list, but I think that would be a good one to really consider when we're looking at the Mile High Youth Corps work this year.
Yep. I agree.
Does that everybody kind of, is there any more needs to be said about any of that?
About the priority list, Shannon?
Right.
I just want to say, and I appreciate John saying they'll take any position that they can get. Just from a historical perspective, Seth's position, John's position, these positions just didn't exist, period, 3 years ago. So having even you guys now on as staff is a huge change for OSAC. In the past, we've done everything ourselves plus what we could pay for. So
and Nancy, we just entered in a 3-year agreement with Rimfy. So
exactly. So to me, that should be nowhere on the list. It's not, it's not part of a city priority. Adding another staff person to city staff without kind of knowing whether it's sustainable or not, all of that. I mean, I think we have some fantastic things happening between having Seth and John on staff now and having just spent $38,000 on trail maintenance. and having more money to spend on planning, you know, to me, that position right now doesn't make any sense in there. We need to figure out how what we have will get done, what we hope to get done. But I can't
agree
imagine adding
100%.
another person right now.
And I would just add on to that, Nancy, the Serpentine acquisition, huge, especially with the Higginbotham Park plan and the possibility of a trail connection. Huge achievement this year. I'd add that to the list.
Yeah. And everybody should know this is this would be something of a partnership with parks. I don't think OSAC should be responsible for putting in the whole trail. It's a partnership with parks and the city. So I think this, since we've bought the Serpentine property, it's now up for parks to do their master plan, and then we figure out how to connect them with Creek Walk.
I think the only reason we were talking about doing 2 master plans was to get a big GoCo grant that will fund the whole thing. So I
You
see
mean
what
the
you're saying.
planning, because really, when you look at the Serpentine property, that's part of the Creek Walk. I mean, that's why we're invested in that piece of property. And we
Right.
have a Creek Walk plan. We've paid for a Creek Walk plan. So yeah, we'll partner on any GoCo thing we can do, but our priority should be actually paying to get that phase of Creek Walk finished. If that's included in the GoCo grant, great. But we don't really need any more planning money for our piece of it. Parks needs money for their piece of it, but we've done our piece. We've bought the property. We've worked on the Creek Walk plan is finished. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, we have now committed $200,000 in the last several months to Creek Walk.
Yeah.
So we've thrown in a pretty good share on that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you talk about priorities, the discussion we had on 7, wouldn't that something we'd want to boot right to the top, just from what Judith said? And
Well, we've already we have an actionable item that we're pursuing we're renewing that easement immediately. Is what that's what I took from our discussion a little bit
the
ago.
other half of that, unless I misunderstood, was to get with planning and then subsequently to council to get this problem brought to the attention of council with a plan. That I
Right.
think sounds like a chunk. That that sounds like an important priority, and that's why I was wondering if that's something we should consider moving up into this priority list. I realize it isn't directly about acquiring, but it sounds like it's pretty important, and Judith urged us to get it done this year.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, it sounds like that's happening. We're doing everything in our power to, right? Is that right? Does everybody?
Yeah, I
Yeah, so
hope so. I just suggest that we get those easements, the new easements for the next 3 years signed before we start any other negotiations. Because right now they've got us over a barrel.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what I took away from our conversation, is what our plan was.
Okay.
Is all this super crystal clear? John, do you have any questions?
Well, I've got a lot of questions, but I think I'll spread them out over time here. So no, I've taken a lot in today in this meeting, so it's been very helpful and informative for me.
Okay. Do you guys want to talk about future agendas? The next thing up, I think, is trails, right? Then we'll have the open space management, and then that will put us into March. in that meeting, I'm gonna make sure we do that in person. Because by then we will have some stuff we can discuss in executive session, like really exciting stuff. So everybody should be stoked. And we can like look at some maps and like really figure out, everybody's kind of got marching orders. We all have something to do. And then in March, we'll be able to do I think some pretty big action. So, and maybe we'll have some ideas of the master plan too. So anybody else want to add anything? Questions?
No, just speaking of master plan though, we're due for a whole rewrite of that. We're so now that the land use development code, I think the Plan Manitou is due to be looked at this year. So just to plant the seed here to take a fresh look at it. So because it will probably hopefully be coming to council sometime this year to launch that. So I think it's we revise it every 5 years, and I think the last time it was revised was 2017. Yeah. So yeah, it's got to be done this year. So it's another thing to think about.
And so the Plan Manitou would include like elements that the post plan includes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So and again, I don't know a timeline from when that will start, but that was discussed in a council meeting not that long ago, that the next big hurdle is to take a look at updating Plan Manitou.
Okay.
Well, we've been told a couple times by several people that the post plan is ready to be updated too. And I think in our priority meeting, when that happened, we all just go, oh, is what I think happened when that came up. So it's on our horizon. It's definitely not going to be this year.
Yeah, that was a huge, very expensive project.
Yeah, Skylar told us it would be like 75 to 100 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
and I'm
and
just
Nancy-
planting the seed, nothing more. I just want to put that out in front of you that it's going to come up. I
Yeah.
don't know when, but it's going to.
Well,
No,
if we could collaborate too, like the Plan Manitou with the post plan elements, you know,
Yeah.
like
we've had the seed planted and we keep kind of
Hiding.
looking away.
That's so easy.
I know.
Put your head in the sand.
It's like I already have so much gray hair. But anyway, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Just planting the seed for priorities. When it does come up, OSAC might want to take a look at the priority list of 2023 and how that fits into the grand scheme.
Yep. Andrea, did you have something you wanted to say?
so I was just gonna say, like, anybody's invited to the Trails Subcommittee meeting, even if you're not on the Trails Subcommittee. But I think what our primary thing will be to look at the Red Mountain element and the with the new easement, and maybe start looking at an ask for or revisit and talk about the ask for things from the COG, I guess.
Yeah. And I'll get with you. I'm going to reach out to council and see how much teeth we have on this. So I'll get with you to let you know like how aggressive we can get. So anybody want to move to adjourn?
Me.
So moved.
Second.
A second? Second, TJ. All those in favor? Thank you a lot, everybody. Everybody put in a ton of work and it all looks great. So
Really good meeting. Yeah. Thanks for being here, Nancy. Wherever you are.
Buenas noches.
see you guys. Have a good
Hasta
night.
luego.
Thanks,
everybody.
Buenas tardes.
Bye-bye.